This is NDTV. And you're watching NDTV 24/7.
Welcome. You're watching Living with COVID. I'm Rishika Barua. This is the show where we answer your questions on the coronavirus. As India enters Unlock 3, what are the do's and don'ts that you need to follow as you navigate this new normal? Joining us as always is a panel of expert doctors on the broadcast. We have with us today Dr. Nandini Rastogi. She is an ex-captain at the Army Medical Corps. She's currently a consultant physician, diabetologist and intensivist from the Nirmaya Clinic in Kanpur, as well as the Madhuraj Hospital in Kanpur. Appreciate you, doctor, for being with us. We have Dr. Rajesh Bhakchandani, is a consultant critical care medicine at the Apex Hospital in Bhopal. We have Dr. Sheetal Kumar Hiran, fellow at the American College of Cardiology, also the European Society of Cardiology from the Healthy Heart Clinic in Nasik. Appreciate you, doctors, for sparing the time of day to be with us today. I want to begin by asking you, if I can, Dr. Rastogi, what are the kind of steps that you're taking at this point to make your consulting room, your clinic, safe for patients as well as physicians? You know, this, of course, because so many people still have apprehensions about accessing healthcare facilities.
Yes, you're quite correct that the patients are quite scared to come to the healthcare facility because they feel that they would get infected. But I'd like to remind them that now this pandemic has gone on for so long, and I don't know how long it will carry on, that they cannot not take treatment for their other ailments. But very important is also what Benjamin Franklin said, that an ounce of precaution is worth the pound of cure. So it is important that we consider every patient walking into our clinic as a potential carrier of COVID infection. We need to cut down the OPD timings. We need to practice for a few hours, maybe in a single shift. So keep the OPD time short to survive. You need to call in every patient into the clinic with a prior appointment, maybe given at 15 minutes interval, so as to avoid the overcrowding in the clinic. If the patient comes, the dedicated staff at the entrance should screen them with proper kit. They should be wearing masks, gloves, caps, face shield and gowns, and they should segregate the respiratory patients and the COVID suspected patients, and these patients should not be allowed to sit in the waiting area. Either they can be examined outside the clinic area, or a very quick in and out can be done. They also should keep the doors and windows in the clinic open so that there is good ventilation. Patients and their relatives at the time of the entrance should be enforced to wear masks. If they are not wearing, then they should be supplied with a mask by the clinic management. The dedicated staff, which should check the temperature, the pulse oximeter, and if required, the blood pressure by a digital blood pressure instrument, and that should be periodically disinfected.
Right.
And the chairs should be minimal in the waiting area. We should maintain social distancing at all times in the clinic.
Right.
Minimum paper and currency handling should be encouraged, and if possible, an e-prescription should be given. Again, the doctor who's examining should have a minimum time of contact with the patient. I would suggest an examination in and out within less than 5 minutes should be fine. At the time of the examination, the patient should be asked not to speak. If you need to do the auscultation of the patient, it can be done from back. Also, disinfection practices at the clinic premises should be followed very strictly.
Right, I think that's a very right. I think those are very comprehensive guidelines that you're putting in place. Let me bring in Dr. Bhakchandani into the conversation as well, because you know, one part of the question is of course physical examination, but what about testing? What are the kind of safety protocols that you're following, for instance, when you conduct a physical examination or the ECG, say, of a patient?
Well, the physical examination in the era of COVID has to be minimized. The physical contact with the patient and the close vicinity with the patient and his attendants should be minimized as far as possible. We should not be able to touch the files repeatedly. Whatever information we can get digitally through WhatsApp or through mails, we should collect before the entry of the patient, and the reception staff should be trained for that one. And procedures like ECG and ultrasound and echo, which are sometimes mandatory or sometimes very much required in OPD, they should, people who are carrying out should be in a complete PPE kit, because they are exposed to a patient in a closed room and they are by definition a close contact with a suspect COVID patient. So these precautions should be taken, and before doing that, the patient should be sterilized. He should be asked to wash his hands and he should wear his mask and cap, and there should be a screen in between if he is coughing continuously. And more importantly, we can keep the air purifiers or proper ventilation in the room, so that even if he coughs, there is minimal exposure to the healthcare workers.
All right. So, a whole host of precautions, of course, that need to be followed. A lot
yes,
of new
we
things,
need to follow.
Right. A lot of new things that really need to be kept in mind. Dr. Hiran, let me come to you now.
Yes.
What are the kind of protocols that you are following, or what is it that you advise is the best possible way to enforce things like physical distancing or screening, at reception areas or waiting areas in hospitals and clinics?
What we try to do is that give appointments on telephone and inquire if the patient is suffering from fever or cough. That point of time, we have dedicated fever clinics in the hospital where patient can directly go there. And those patients who need to have regular follow-ups for their blood pressure, for their heart condition, for the sugar, they can come get in proper appointment. Say like we just examine 4 patients in an hour so that the crowding is not there at the clinic. We have kept portable wash basins and sanitizers operated by foot or electronic sanitizers, where patient before coming to clinic, they can wash their hands and get sanitized. Then we have our staff maintained in PPE kit so that, the cross-infection chances are pretty less. Then we examine everyone's pulse, blood pressures, SpO2, that is oxygen saturation in the body. And if everything is fine, then the patient can be seen by the doctor. And we usually practice that only the patient will come to the clinic and the relatives will wait outside so that the cross-infections are less. And as the technologies are advancing, I usually promote monitoring, self-monitoring for the patients. Like there are digital instruments of blood pressure monitoring, pulse oximeter for monitoring the oxygen levels. There are sugar which can be monitored electronically at home. So I promote these kind of things for the patients, so that they can be aware. And if the things are not in control, they can get a video consultation or telephonic consultation. And that is also feasible in this advanced era, so that patient will have minimal risk of COVID and they can get an optimum treatment without fearing of COVID disease.
All right, a whole host of measures there, of course, to enforce the new normal. Dr. Rastogi, if I can come back to you, there are several questions at the moment that a lot of people have on, what draws the line between a teleconsult and what warrants a physical examination. When it comes to symptoms, what should one be watchful for? What are the kind of symptoms that can be managed at home, for instance, and what are the kind of symptoms or telltale signs that one should be watchful of, which indicate that you need a hospital or a physical examination?
So the good thing today is that the government of India has legalized telemedicine, by which the level 1 COVID cases can be quarantined and managed in home isolation. So patients who have mild symptoms or who are asymptomatic, that means they have influenza-like illness or fever more than less than 102, dry cough, sore throat, malaise, or loss of taste and smell. These patients who have no breathlessness or hypoxia, they can be managed at home. They can be told to monitor their fever and their oxygen saturation at home. The necessary precautions for droplet infection should be monitored and should be followed. And these patients are told to symptomatically treat with antipyretics, antitussives, and the antibiotics. But what is very important that these patients, along with their home care providers, should also be given the warning signs when they should suspect serious disease, and that time they should seek medical attention immediately. And these warning signs are like any difficulty in breathing, if there is a dip in the oxygen saturation to less than 94% at room air, or if the patient has persistent pain or pressure in the chest, he has difficulty in arising himself, or he has mental confusion, slurred speech, or seizures, or weakness or numbness in any part of the body, or if he has developing bluish discoloration of the lips and faces.
Right.
In such cases, you have to take the patient to the healthcare facility, hospital most likely, so that the patient gets admitted.
One thing, that if patients are maintaining pulse oximetry at home, there is a term which is coming up very fast nowadays among the doctors, is happy hypoxia. I mean, the patients are coming very normal and they come with very low saturation. So if the patients are monitoring with the pulse oximeter and if their saturation is 94 and above, they should not feel happy. They should do a 6-minute walk test and again search for a saturation. If the saturation after the 6-minute walk test comes down, they should immediately report to the emergency or to the treating doctor or the family physician. Because most of the times of late we have come to know in this disease that hypoxia is prevailing, and that is delaying the entry of patients to the emergency departments.
All right, so very crucial
and
advice
I think
there.
Also the patients who are immunocompromised due to any reason, patients who are HIV positive, transplant patients, receiving chemotherapy, and elderly patients with comorbidities, they should not be advocated home isolation.
Let me come back to you on another very crucial aspect, Dr. Bakchandani, which is about the use of masks and gloves. Now, while of course we advocate the use of masks and gloves, the other aspect of it is, you know, the disposal of the mask or the washing of the mask or reusing of the mask that needs to be done equally carefully. What's the kind of etiquette that you'd advise when it comes to the use of masks and gloves?
Like, as far as possible, the masks, if they are used, they should be used as did use and throw masks. They not be reused, they should not be washed, because they are not washed properly and we cannot ensure that they are not. And when they are disposed, they should be disposed by healthcare workers in a dedicated COVID bag. It's a yellow dedicated COVID bag where they should dispose, and they should dispose in a proper manner, so that if they have carried the infection from some patient, they should not transmit it further to the society, number one. And apart from mask, the simple surgical mask is enough if you are attending a OPD, and if you are attending a procedure which is generating some aerosols, you need to be with a N95 or a double mask, a surgical mask and an N95 mask over that, along with a shield in front of it. This is for healthcare workers and for caretakers who are taking care of the home quarantine patients at their home. And moreover, as soon from the very start of the disease, it has been repeatedly said by WHO that it is a disease which spreads through fomites and very less possibility by aerosols. So very utmost care should be taken that every person who is in close vicinity of the patient should wear gloves. You must have said with the start of the disease, most of the policemen were in contact, most of the policemen, most of the bureaucrats and most of the political leaders, they became positive just because they are using masks, but they are not using gloves. Gloves are another important device which can protect you for getting COVID. Whenever we want to touch our face, we have to count 1 to 5. We have to think twice.
Right.
So gloves definitely will give you an additional protection, because you are touching here and there, and the tables, the fomites are there, and you can get it in contact and can touch your face. And this is, the virus gets an entry through the portals and you get infected.
Very crucial information there. We're going to slip into a very short break at this moment. Our panel of expert doctors will continue to be live with us on the other side. Stay tuned.
Knowledge Partner, USV, your reliable healthcare partner.
Welcome back. You're watching Living with COVID. We have a panel of expert doctors with us on the broadcast to answer your questions on the coronavirus. Dr. Hiran, if I can come to you, there are many patients who die of the coronavirus. They seem to have a cardiac condition or develop heart attacks as a result of contracting the coronavirus. Can you explain the correlation between COVID-19 and heart attack?
Usually the patient present with respiratory symptoms, fever, cough, and then the condition starts deteriorating very rapidly. And the studies have shown that the deaths are very more common in the patients of COVID who have pre-existing heart disease. That means that the patient who have suffered an heart attack in the past, or who has taken in treatment for heart disease, hypertension, diabetes, kidney disease, or transplant patients, they are more prone, and overall 22% of COVID death had underlying heart problem. And studies also have shown that almost 1 in 10 patients of COVID has signs of heart injury. So why exactly it's happening? Basically, the virus is so virulent that it causes severe inflammation of the cardiovascular systems. It causes inflammation of the blood vessels. It causes inflammation of the muscles of the heart. This causes platelet activation and formation of blood clot in the heart or in the arteries.
Right.
And that is causing a heart attack. And sometimes it also causes the rhythm disturbance, what we call as arrhythmias. Sometimes it causes stroke. So this has been seen very commonly these days. And the virus also in very few cases directly infects the heart, and it causes fulminant myocarditis. And that is the situation where it becomes, the chances of patient coming out of heart very grim. Also on top of it, some medicines which are being used for COVID, like hydroxychloroquine or remdesivir, these molecules, they have sometimes side effects on the heart, and that is also a part of worsening heart disease. So we have to be very careful.
Right. It's very interesting that you add that, because which is why doctors say that, you know, all of these drugs that are being used to treat COVID-19 should only be taken under medical supervision, and you shouldn't self-medicate.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes, that is very
Dr.
important.
Rastogi, if I can come to you at this point, and, you know, just shift our focus a little bit to the mental aspect of this disease. There's panic, there's stress, we're living in a pandemic. You know, you fear contracting the infection, you fear for your family. How can you keep sane? How can you manage the mental stress at this point?
We worry whether we are getting infected, we worry whether our near and dear getting infected, and it is very important to maintain a positive outlook towards this pandemic, because a positive outlook will always be associated with better outcomes. So we must share the positive vibes, and today my positive vibe after working for 5 months in this pandemic is that I'm wearing a sari thanks to NDTV. So we need to share our positive vibes.
Right.
We need to speak out. We need to get in touch with our family and friends, people we've not had time to talk to for many years.
Yes.
We also need to be in touch with our doctors and healthcare providers. And it is important that we should not panic. We should remain positive. We should ensure that everyone around us is well protected and safe. Because in the words of Dr. Ratan Tata, this is the time when you should be thinking not of profits or dreams or planning. You should just think of staying alive, and that is equivalent to profit.
Dr. Bhaktandani, if I can come to you, it was very interesting because Dr. Hiran talked about the use of hydroxychloroquine and remdesivir and the effect that it could have on heart patients. But can you explain the role of remdesivir in the treatment of coronavirus?
we had so many drugs. They were all experimental drugs. There is no definite drug which is available. And the reason for this being, this is a pandemic, and we don't have any trial for, don't have any time for undergoing for clinical trials. So remdesivir, which was earlier used for SARS and Ebola viruses, which was not found effective, came into existence, and then we started using it in a compassionate manner, not as a definitive therapy, but as a compassionate manner, that yes, this may give some benefit. So of late, the one problem was of its availability in India. It was available very late, and it was available at very few centers. But since when this drug is available, we are getting a decrease in number of mortality and morbidity, and we have, with few studies which are still ongoing, we have found that the virus load is decreasing fast with this drug. So we are very hopeful.
All right, so very hopeful, but at the same time, it's got emergency use authorization by the government. Dr. Hiran, if I can give you the last word on the broadcast today, the symptoms like breathlessness and fatigue. Now, these are common between COVID-19 as well as common to heart patients. How does one distinguish between the two?
That's a real difficult question, because the heart and the lung problem, they show very similar signs and symptoms, and it really becomes very difficult to differentiate. And unfortunately, we have to take help of investigations, and sometimes they are a bit costly also, but then there is no option. But usually we as a clinician, we try to focus on the history, that if the patient is in contact with, he has come in with contact with a COVID positive patient, or he's suffering from fever, cough, breathlessness, we try to distinguish on a clinical basis. But sometimes with the patient with pre-existing heart disease, then it becomes a bit difficult, and we have to take help of investigations. So usually for the lung problem, a simple chest X-ray many a times is sufficient, and in doubtful cases, we have to do an CT scan of the chest or the lungs to find out is there any infection in the lung. And for sake of our health, we all need to follow these things.
That's all we have time for. Thank you so much, doctors, for joining us on the broadcast and sharing, your perspectives. Several questions that we've tried to address and answer. Several more, I'm afraid, we'll keep for another time. Thank you so much for sparing the time of day and being with us.
Knowledge Partner, USV, your reliable healthcare partner.